guys, and welcome back to another video here on Football Heritage. I'm your host, Stephen Clark, and here on Football Heritage, it's a brand new year. I'm really excited to talk about sport this year with you guys and engage with my audience. We're going to be talking a lot about AFL this year, so that's primarily what this video is about. We're going to be talking about the upcoming 2022 AFL season. Obviously, 2021 and 2020 were sort of COVID hit seasons, and as the AFL looks to sort of get back to its best, it's reopened stadiums in Melbourne essentially to just about full capacity, and we're really looking forward to hopefully a 90,000 crowd for the grand final rematch with the Melbourne Demons and the Western Bulldogs. Obviously, as a Melbourne Demons fan myself, it was a great year last year. An unbelievable year in a lot of ways. Breaking that 57-year Norm Smith curse was unreal, especially to do it in the town that I live in. Perth was just a serious dream for myself, and I just thought that I never want to miss the opportunity to sort of document that sort of sporting journey again. So I really decided to invest into YouTube this year, and really excited to talk AFL with you guys. So without any further ado, let's get into the video where I'm going to be discussing my 2022 AFL predictions. So starting at the bottom, unfortunately there does have to be a team on the bottom, and looking at the sort of bottom six this year, I found it really tough to distinguish sort of who's going to land on top of each other, because if you really do nail it down, I do think that the difference between those bottom six teams is going to be like a 1-win, a 2-win sort of scenario, maybe even a draw sort of separating the teams. I do think it is that tight down there. And yeah, the fans, you know, feel free to come at me if I've got this wrong. Obviously, I can only have so much perspective on every team. But from what I've seen, I do think that this year's Wooden Spooners will be the Adelaide Crows. Listen, they showed up really great at times. They beat my side, the Melbourne Demons, so I don't think they are completely lost in the wilderness as some wooden spoon teams are. I do think this is a team that is on the right path and is rebuilding. I just think that some of its talent, you know, like the Riley Tilthorpe and obviously Josh Rochelle coming in this year as an exciting draft pick, I just think they're on the lower end, and I think that these are the guys that are going to sort of propel Adelaide forward, and I just think they need a couple seasons down near that lower half to really hone their craft, and then they're just going to shoot right up. And I think that it'll actually be really helpful in the long term to get some good draft picks and to really build maybe a dynasty team around these guys. Next up, we have Collingwood. Collingwood looked really exciting during their pre-season, and I hate to sort of dash their hopes, because this is a team that, you know, sort of with the effective players and sort of the veterans that are in this side could really surprise people, and I think could jump up a lot higher than where I've put them for now. But I do just think that maybe with a new coach coming in with McRae, it's going to take that little bit longer to just sort of get things up and going the way that they would like. Really excited about Nick Dacos. I think he's looked fantastic. 31 posies in the Community Series game. I think he's just going to explode this year, and I think he will really be a force of driving this side forward to their next sort of premiership window when it does come. So next up, we have North Melbourne, obviously the Wooden Spooners last year. I see a lot of improvement coming in this side as well, which is why I've sort of decided to bump them up. I think that David Noble's got them on the right path. They didn't look great during the preseason, obviously, but I do think that they are stacked in the right areas to sort of move forward and consistently sort of get better throughout the year. I think that we saw that improvement a lot in the back half of last season, and I think that they're going to be carrying it into this year. Taron Thomas looks like a guy who's going to be really influential for this team, and obviously with the addition of Jason Horne-Francis, the #1 pick of the draft, looks like he's going to play from day one. Looks like he's going to be a natural fit in this league from day one, so I think that he can have a big effect. And yeah, you know, they could also finish bottom. Like I said, it's so tight with some of these teams near the bottom, but I've picked them to maybe get that extra win that sort of makes them rise a little bit, and then watch out for them next year, because I do think that they'll rise a lot after that as well. Next up, we have Hawthorn. So Hawthorn obviously ending the era with Alistair Clarkson on a bit of a high note, sort of picking up some really crucial wins towards the end of the season, and that obviously crazy draw in the last round. Sam Mitchell's obviously come in, club legend. I think he's got the support of all the fans, and obviously I live in the West in Perth, and people always go on and talk about what Sam Mitchell achieved as a midfield coach at West Coast the year that they won their premiership in 2018. So really excited to see how he can translate being a great player, being a really good sort of zone coach, to being the overall head coach of this football club. So really exciting time for them. I do expect them. I think they're a little bit better than the group of teams that I've just mentioned before. Ready to be proved wrong again, like I said, on all of these predictions if I am wrong. But I do think that people like Josh Ward can even make an impact for this team straight away. And yeah, I think they have a lot better sort of players in their prime now, even like guys like O'Meara, and maybe if Gunston can get back as well. Granger Barras maybe is sort of coming of age, and obviously James Sicily as well coming back from that long-term injury. So excited to see what Hawthorn put up this year. I don't think they will be breaking out of that bottom 4 group, but I also don't see them finishing bottom. Next up, I have West Coast. Now, on the premise of ranking pre-seasons, West Coast should be the Wooden Spooners, because Jesus, they have had a terrible time between the amount of injuries and the absolute thumping they got from Fremantle, to sort of even just talking about, you know, how sort of the system looked last year. They did not look great. And then the Jack Darling saga. Will he get vaccinated? Won't he get vaccinated? He does, and then he gets injured on his first training session back. So it's just been a terrible run in pre-season for them. And then as well, we've just heard the news that Tim Kelly has tested positive for COVID, so he will miss the first week, as will potentially Liam Ryan and maybe even Nick Naitanui. So if that happens, I can see the Gold Coast really giving them a flogging in that first game. But yeah, obviously, I think if you look at the list as a whole and you consider that a lot of these injuries are sort of short-term injuries, maybe they can hit their stride come sort of quarter way through the season or midway through the season. And I just think there's probably enough top-end talent here. Even, you know, Josh Kennedy maybe has one last great year in him. Yeah, I think there's maybe enough top-end talent for them to sort of finish sort of middle of the pack sort of thing. Could be on periphery of finals if everything goes their way, but I just don't think there's enough this season to tell me that the Eagles are in that top 8. I think it's a really strong top 8 this year. Next up, we have the Gold Coast. So this is a team that I've been quite bullish on the sort of list look of it. And I do think that Stewie Dew is under a lot of pressure this year, and possibly with where I'm predicting him to finish 5th bottom, I think that he probably will lose his job for that position, because I don't think that overall we've seen enough improvement from this side in terms of ladder finishes, that is, because the team itself is kind of ticking along nicely. You know, their midfield looks like it could be elite. Obviously, Rowell and Anderson coming into their 3rd years. Obviously, Rowell's had just a terrible time with injury. It was great to see him get back on the oval last year and just sort of towards the end of last year and just sort of get those consistent games. He didn't look his normal self, but I think he was just building back from that injury. I think with a full preseason behind him, fingers crossed he doesn't get injured in the first week like he did last year, and hopefully we'll see the best of him. And obviously, Took Miller looks like he's just going to be an elite All-Australian caliber, potentially Brownlow sort of esque player for the Gold Coast, and he's committed. The one big thing, obviously, is the Ben King injury, which I think that if he wasn't injured, I would have probably bumped them up another couple of spots, because I do think that Ben King is at that age as well where he's going to be coming into his prime. So really disappointing injury for them, and I think it could cost Stewie Dew his job. The next team up is St Kilda. So another team, I guess, on paper that you would expect to be sort of pushing to get themselves towards finals again. I think that, you know, they may just be in an unlucky era where I think the top 8 is really strong, and I think that for St Kilda to get into that, they're going to need to have a real couple stars across all their lines. I think Max King is trending that way. I think that he could be a big year for him as well, to kind of step up. We saw that performance against West Coast where I think he scored 7 goals last season. If he can have another couple of those, he could propel his team up towards the 8. Obviously, Jackson Steele is looking like he is going to be one of the Brownlow favourites this year. He's obviously a massive bull in that midfield, such a great sort of warrior for St Kilda. But they do have a couple injuries, and I just think that if you look at the entirety of their list, I just don't think they have enough stars across all their lines. St Kilda fans, let me know if I've got this completely wrong, but I would predict that you guys will finish kind of just on the outskirts of the 8. If everything goes to plan and goes right, you could finish in the 8, but for now, I think that's still to be seen. Now we're coming into the part of the ladder where I really feel guilty about kicking teams out of the 8, because I feel like it just is going to be so tight around that sort of 11th to sort of 6th position. The team I've got finishing here is GWS Giants. I don't know what I'm thinking here. I'm going to be self-critical here, because as I was sort of ranking these teams, I just kept flip-flopping on who was going to finish where. At the end of the day, I'm just going to say that I think the Toby Green suspension for 5 weeks will be massive. I think that, you know, maybe the likes of Bobby Hill with the transfer saga he had over the break might have questionable motivations and feeling about the club. I think Tom Green looks awesome. He's going to sort of come of age, but, you know, is he enough to sort of propel them into the 8 alone? And Cornelio, you know, there's a lot of talk about Cornelio coming back to his best. I would love to see it if it does happen. I think at his best, he's an elite All-Australian midfielder, but, you know, again, just still to be seen at this point. So I think there's a lot of question marks around GWS. A team, like I said, could finish as high as 6th, could finish as low as 11th. So really interesting season for them. And if you're a GWS fan, you know, yeah, tell me why I should be on the positive side of that. Okay, now we come to what could be the biggest howler of this entire prediction. I've got Sydney Swans missing the 8. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the Sydney Swans team looks awesome. I really rate specifically what they're doing at the back. I love the idea of Paddy McCartan rocking up with his brother Tom McCartan. I think that could be really interesting. You know, I just maybe feel like some of their older players are a little bit too old now. You know, Franklin, he's going to be really motivated in those first few weeks of the season, but is he going to be able to last the whole season? Who knows? Josh Kennedy as well, you know, he still looks really good. New position for him, though, potentially this season. And I think that the youngsters might just kind of still be building their way just to their best. I think they overperformed a little bit last season. And listen, this is one where they're just on the outskirts of the 8. I think they could definitely make the 8. Yeah, it's really going to come down to a couple wins, couple losses, and the schedule at the end of the day here. Next up, another really unlucky team to miss out in my 8 is Fremantle Dockers. What a great list. They look like they're shaping up for a real sort of potential dynasty era, likes of Sarong and Brayshaw, and obviously Fife and Mundy still sort of ticking along. And, you know, Fife looks like I live in Perth, so I went down and saw Fremantle train a couple of weeks ago, and I saw Fife there, and he looked absolutely shredded. He looked like he's ready to rock and roll, and from everything coming out of the club, you know, chucking him back into the midfield seems like the right decision. And obviously Sean Darcy as well could be ready to take the league by storm in the ruck position. I think that Fremantle Dockers are trending in the right direction. Could be their year to make the 8. Definitely could be their year. I've got them just missing out. But again, Fremantle fans, let me know. Why should I be on the positive side? Who's going to be scoring the goals for you guys? That's a huge question. Can the likes of Lob, these guys, sort of Switkowski as well, sort of get the job done for you guys? So finally, we're into the top 8 of this prediction video, and I have Essendon finishing in 8th position. I really feel like Essendon, if you look at it, are sort of just like the 8th best team in the league at the moment. I feel like the likes of Parrish and Merritt really have kind of hit their peak era now, and I think we're coming into an era where they could be dominant in their area of the pitch. And also with those guys, I really, as a Melbourne fan, they do kind of remind me very, very, I would go to say as far as a lot, they do remind me a lot of sort of an early Petrarca and Oliver. Obviously in looks a little bit, but in just in the way their play style is as well. I feel like they're really starting to have that sort of effect on their team, and sort of galvanizing effect that those kinds of players can have. And yeah, I just feel like they will be a top 8 side for the next foreseeable futures, and I think that yeah, eventually, probably in the next couple of years, we might even see a flag tilt. So yeah, exciting. They've got Jake Stringer, obviously looking pretty good at the moment as well. What can Peter Wright do? He's looked like he could be ready for a good season. Sam Draper as well, could be ready for his first full 22-game season as a ruckman. Yeah, exciting times for Essendon. Next up, I've got Carlton. So I am drinking the metaphorical Kool-Aid here. I am buying into the Voss sort of era that we could be walking into. I just think that if you look at this team on paper, it literally is too good to be missing finals. You've got Wiedering at the back, Adam Sard as well. I think that the addition of Mitch McGovern down the back could be really exciting. Obviously, Chera, Hewitt, Cripps, Walsh when he comes back from his injury. That looks like a stacked midfield. Then you got Harry Mackay, Curnow. I just feel like on all lines of what I've been saying about some of the other teams, I just feel like on all lines they are covered. And I just feel like they don't really have a weak area anymore. And especially if Voss can get those midfielders playing at their best, they can compete with anyone. And I just think that this will be the year that they finally get it together and make the 8. Okay, so next up, I really am buying into experience here, but I've got the Richmond Tigers. So I just don't think that they're done yet. I think that they could potentially have a flag tilt. I think anyone from this point upwards on my ladder could potentially be a grand finalist. I think Richmond just have too much experience. I think that Rewalt and obviously Dustin Martin, Trent Cotchin, I think these guys are just not going to want to go out on sort of falling away out of the 8. I think that there's one great year left in them, and I feel like it could be this year. I think that Hardwick is going to be really motivated to get them there one last time. And yeah, I just think that they're too good to miss out with a full year of Dustin Martin. I think they were really close last year, even with all the injuries and sort of the short preseason that they had, which was well documented. So yeah, I'm backing the Richmond Tigers to make the 8 this year, and yeah, tell me why I'm wrong if you think so. Another team that I definitely don't think is ready to sort of fall down out of the 8 yet is Geelong. I know a lot of people are sort of predicting their demise, and sorry Geelong fans, but obviously as a Melbourne fan, I would love to see that. You guys, I think that's a compliment, because I think you guys have been sort of the benchmark of a really professional, high standard team for such a long time. And I do think this era is slightly waning and coming to an end, but at the same time, I definitely think that there is enough there to push you guys over the line if you were to get into a grand final again. The likes of obviously Dangerfield. I think Jeremy Cameron is going to have a great year if he has a full season. With Tom Hawkins, I mean, I can see those guys combined scoring 100 goals this year. Like, there's so much firepower in that attack. Obviously, the question marks will come around the game style and the play style. Whether or not they can compete with the super fit, sort of young and energetic teams like Melbourne, like Brisbane, Western Bulldogs. Can they do it? It's yet to be seen, but I do think that there will be enough to keep them in that hunt, essentially, and they could make top 4. Alright, so now we're into the top 4. Really exciting here. We've got Port Adelaide. So obviously last year's prelim ended about as badly as you could imagine for a team. I think that there was a lot of lessons learned, and from what I'm hearing in pre-season, it sounds like there was a lot of truth spoken about that performance and about sort of where they see themselves. Obviously, this sort of feels like the last few years for Robbie Gray and Travis Boak, who really will want to get a premiership flag in their resume. And obviously, there's also a lot of there's a lot of guys who sort of feel like they're in the right era for winning a premiership as well, like guys like Ollie Wines, obviously Brownlow medalist, Carl Amon, guys that feel like they're the right age for it. And then you've also got a lot of young, exciting talent with Mitch Georgiadis, for example, obviously the trifecta of Butters, Rosie, and Dersmer as well. Yeah, I just think that they're a really stacked team, and I think that they're top 4 quality. And I think that if they get the opportunity again to have a home prelim final, I can't see them blowing it this time. But yeah, obviously a lot of pressure is going to be on this coaching staff, and to see if they can finally get it done. Third position, I have the grand final runners-up, the Western Bulldogs. An awesome side. Like I said, when you get to this point in the table, it really is going to be sort of coming down to those top games and the head-to-head games. I just think that the Western Bulldogs maybe have one weak area, which is I just not sure if I really rate their defence enough against the highest of the highest defence. Obviously, midfielders, they stack up with anyone. Going forward, the Josh Bruce injury didn't seem to affect them in finals, but we're yet to see what a full season of missing Josh Bruce looks like. Is Jamara Ugle-Hagan ready? Is Darcy ready to make a start? Doesn't look like it at this point. I think he's injured as well, Darcy, at the moment. So yeah, we'll have to see sort of if all their other areas can sort of match them in the midfield, where they're just so stacked. Like I think the likes of Bontempelli and McRae obviously going to have another great season. Both those guys, Treloar, Dunkley. There's a lot of great names in there, and that's why I've got them in that third position. Definitely could make another grand final. Definitely will be a team to watch out for. I just think that maybe over a full season, the top two teams might have them beat. Okay, so in second position, I've got the Brisbane Lions. So this is a team that definitely could win it all. So if you look across their entire team, I think they're just maturing really, really well. I think that Fagan's going to be super motivated after the way that they went out of finals last year. And I just feel like, that even some of the guys that they missed in injury are coming back this year and could look really good. I expect Danaher to sort of get his kicking straight and to sort of fix up and score a lot more goals this year. Charlie Cameron obviously looks like he's right in his prime. Zach Bailey just looks like an absolute superstar in the making. And I really think that Cam Rayner could also, if he comes back into this team, obviously a past number one pick as well, could be really effective. So I see Brisbane really, really challenging this year and could definitely finish top of the ladder. I think they're pretty much nailed on top four, and would not surprise me at all if they end the year as the premiers. And on top, obviously a little bit of bias here, but I've chosen the Melbourne Demons. Some people might say it's a bit boring to choose the premiers of last year to be the premiers again. I just personally think if you look across everywhere, I think they are the most complete team in every single department. I think that their best players are right in their prime and aren't too young or too old. Even sort of people on the older side, I guess like you're looking at your May and your Gorns, are still just like, they're not going to drop off hugely this season. I think that Gorn has still got another 2 or 3 years in him for sure. And I think that May, coming back off his hamstring injury, is going to be really strong. I just think that Petrarca and Oliver, everyone obviously knows that they're two of maybe the top 3 or 4 players in the competition. I just think that they're amazing, and I think that as long as they are motivated in the correct way by Goodwin and by people like Jocko Williams in the staff and Adam Uze, I think that this team can go again. And obviously, winning back-to-back flags is a really, really hard thing to do. You look at the amount of teams that have done it. It's not many in the modern era. I think that to become that team, they have the potential, but they will need a lot of things to go their way again. Obviously, not many injuries last year, so we'll see how that will affect the team. We've got a couple injuries in defence already at the moment, so we'll have to see how that affects us early on. But yeah, I just think that right now they are still the best team. I think that there's even some guys that can do more. I think that Salem is one of the most underrated players in the league, and I think that if he has another season like he did last year, All-Australian for sure. I think that Tom Sparrow is ready to explode in the sort of half-forward midfield zone. I think Cozzy Pickett's got more to offer as well, just more growth to come. Luke Jackson as well, how much more time will he spend in the ruck? I just think that they are the team to beat at the moment, and I'm ready to be proved wrong like any fan and like any person making a predictions video. But I just feel like this is their era, and if they weren't to get another premiership in the next 2 or 3 years, I think they would feel like they've left it on the table for sure. So that's it for the ladder predictions, guys. I'm just going to quickly run through some predictions here I've made for the Brownlow medal. I've got it being a tie between Clayton Oliver and Marcus Bontempelli. I feel like there is that argument to be made that maybe the Took Miller or the Jackson Steele will win it, because those guys don't get as many points taken off them as Bontempelli and Oliver, and obviously Wines as well could go again. I just feel like I'm gonna just back the best players in the league, who I think Oliver and Bontempelli are my tied number 1 player in the league, with Petrarca just right underneath them. So yeah, that's who I've got. So for my Coleman medalists, I've got Joe Danaher. I really think that he's a really interesting player, and I feel like he gets himself in so much great positions to score goals, and in a really good performing team like Brisbane this year, I think he could score a lot of goals. All he needs to do is just fix up his aim, because he was already getting in positions and taking marks. So if he can fix up that aim, he could score a bucket load. Though I do feel bad for not choosing someone like a Jeremy Cameron, because I feel like he's going to have a huge year as well. And obviously Harry Mackay, the reigning Coleman medalist, is a great option too. Rising star, I've got Nick Dacos. I just think this guy looks incredible, ready to rock and roll. Obviously it could be Horn Francis too, but I just feel like maybe on a team like Collingwood, I don't know. I just feel like with obviously the history of the family name, and I feel like playing with his brother as well will give an extra added confidence. He strikes me as a really confident kid. Obviously wanted to go number 1. I think he'll be eager to sort of prove that maybe he was the best player in the draft. I just think Nick Dacos is the clear favourite for the Rising Star. First time All Australians is the last prediction that I've done, so just got a couple guys here who I think will make the All Australian team for the first time. Christian Salem, like I mentioned previously, I just think if he has another season like he did last season, he can't go under the radar again. He's just too good. He's too much of a good kick. He's too effective in this Melbourne team. He's literally one of the main cogs. I think he finished 4th or 5th in our best and fairest last year. I think it was 4th in our best and fairest. So that obviously shows you how highly rated he is within the club. And I feel like that external validation will finally arrive this year. And I've also got Hugh McCluggage as well. Obviously, yeah, what can you say about Hugh McCluggage? That just feels like it's inevitable that he will be an All-Australian at some point in the future. And I just feel like with Brisbane, like I said, I expect them to be really good this year. Maybe this is the year where he finally gets that recognition too. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Obviously, really hard to separate a lot of these teams. I've probably made a lot of mistakes here, as we know that any sporting season is super unpredictable, and I feel like putting yourself out there with a ladder predictions is obviously going to draw a lot of negative attention from the teams that I've put low or missing the 8. Yeah, obviously let me have it if you feel like I've got things really wrong, but also here for actual genuine discussion on why you think maybe I got things wrong, maybe you think I got a couple things right. Yeah, let me know down in the comments below, guys. And if you have any suggestions for any more videos as we close in on the 24 hours before the season starts, just so excited about that. Yeah, can't wait to see what this season brings. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video, guys. See ya.